Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of SuperFantaFi. This being a show where we talk about TV shows of the supernatural, fantasy, and or science fictional genre. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about my gift level 9,999 Unlimited Gacha Season 1, Episode 4. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. So, of course, let's start off with a major bummer where it turns out Light tries to return home after all of his time in the Abyss. Well, not all of his time. It seems like the Garo situation isn't his first interaction with the surface. I mean, to be fair, that was like May drawing Garo to the Abyss, because once again, probably don't want too many spectators and yada yada yada, but it was like before the full 3 years of the time skip, he had already returned to the surface. It's like, right, built up enough strength, had people survey enough of the surrounding area to not worry about it. So I guess this is kind of more like somewhere in between episode 1 and episode 2 in that time frame. I think one in like 2.5 years, I think it said. But then by the time he gets there, his village is gone. And he doesn't know who did it or why. The assumption is maybe it has something to do with him being a maestro. So the question didn't become, well, why do that? But it's like, well, because I guess you don't want anyone bringing up anything about like, oh, Light disappeared, and don't want anyone asking any questions, because you want to make it so that Light never existed almost by wiping him out. So you wipe out every connection to him. But then there's also like, it's a village of humans who would bring up a stink about it, but it's probably just for the sake of like, you don't want anyone rising up and retaliate. Like, I don't know. I can only assume that's the reason, and maybe because you just want to wipe his entire existence out. That's all it means. It's just evil through and through, so probably doesn't need a reason, but I wonder, is that the like severely evil justification for it? But yeah, his mom and dad are definitely gone, but he thinks his siblings, at least prays that his siblings are alive, because I guess amongst the bodies he never found his and God knows how long ago. I mean, for there to be bodies to bury, who knows? I mean, it's a fantasy world. You don't have to get into the realism of how long it would take a body to decompose and stuff. So I don't know if it was like pretty soon after like he was quote unquote killed. So the village was destroyed like a very long time ago. Who knows? I mean, it's not going to be like a spoilers Dragon Quest 11 reveal where it's like, oh my god, everyone. Well, I mean, like, yeah, I think, yeah, it's been a while since Dragon Quest 11. There's a similar beat of like, oh my god, your village you grew up in has been destroyed. That's a whole thing. But yeah, that sucks. And obviously we skipped to like 6 months later. So I guess periodically he has, in that time frame, has probably popped in. I mean, the fact is he was playing Flowers again. That might have been the first time he's been back since first discovering it. Because obviously, like, he showed up with his 4 mains, but later on at the beginning of the episode, we see he shows up with Nemumu and Gold. So, but obviously Light is pissed off, and obviously he's going to find out who did this and why. And it's like, if the reason is something just so purely evil, it's like, cool, I made it clear last episode, I'm willing to burn this world to the ground if it turns out to be sucky. It's like, he's kind of, I think I made this parallel. He's kind of on a clever test. Like, this world needs to convince me it's worth saving. He said that last episode, I could be this world's savior or its destroyer. So it's like, this world needs to convince me that it's worth saving. Like I said, very much in line. If you've watched or read Clever Test, great series. I highly recommend if you're looking for on the more dark fantasy side of things. It finished up 12 episodes. Well, first season did. It was renewed for a second season. Tangents and all that aside, I think it was in episode 2, someone did comment to my question about like, oh, did the time skip happen in the light novel? And it did. And I think they said like there are parts in the story that do kind of go back to fill you in on some of the stuff that happened in that 3-year time gap. Either way, but Light is still going through gathering information. So they go to like a dwarven town because they plan on registering as adventurers, because it's the best way, like quickly raise your ranks. That gives you access to certain things and information. I mean, especially as a human, they're not going to be able to do whatever they want. It's something I didn't even notice or really think about, even these last episodes, that none of the people that are in the Abyss, for the most part, everyone there is human-esque. He doesn't seem to have any people from like the other races, and I think maybe that's. But I mean, that doesn't mean he won't eventually gain allies outside of his core Gacha people too. Eventually, because like a story like this, a great example I'll use is like Metaphor, Re Fantasio, where it's like your party is for the most part. I mean, in all honesty, is made from all the different races in the game. That's kind of like the purposes of that story. So I'm surprised that, I mean, maybe there are some and I just wasn't paying as much attention. I mean, he does have a cat-like character, but for the most part, a good chunk of his people are human. So, but maybe I hadn't really noticed that some of them aren't. But either way, but I think maybe them being human is meant to be a thing considering how humans are treated. So him having a party of humans, it, for one, makes people like underestimate you and look down upon you, sadly, just because they assume this and that about you, and because they view the human race as a total, as lesser than. So I'm actually lost like why I went on that diatribe to begin. I think it's just my point was like because it's going to be hard to gather information as a human because no one's going to really be too willing to, well, at least from other races, won't be too willing to share information. So like being an adventurer, it's kind of like you can't do anything about it. My position is my position, and if I'm a high enough rank, you can't deny me. Like the proof is in the pudding type of situation. So I guess that's like the extra justification for like why I go through that extra step. And you probably, as a high-ranking adventurer, you probably get access to information you normally wouldn't be able to get access to as a non-adventurer. So there's layers to it. So, but also he's going under like obviously very befitting while he's on the surface, kind of doing his thing, kind of enacting his revenge. He is going under he's wearing a mask and he's dark, which makes a lot of sense. But they come across a father and child who are being accosted by like some dwarf thieves and quickly disposing him. I love that they immediately caught Gold caught their attention. He's like, haha, it's understandable considering how shiny my armor is. And then was like, you idiot, we're trying to lay low and be under the radar and you're standing out so much. I even love that Light's like, honestly, I don't even know if they like are best friends or enemies the way they bicker, but they're that's probably like just part of their shtick. I mean, it makes me wonder like how a lot of these heroes do respond to each other, especially the ones that are like of the same levels. Because these two, like Gold and Emamu, are the 5,000ers. And it's like, I mean, we've seen a little bit of the 9,999s, how they're like the main ones and how they bounce off each other, and obviously how they respond to Light. But also, it's like they're his closest confidants, obviously. But either way, helps this father and child make their way to the town. Even they point out, like, wow, someone being that powerful, not being registered as an adventurer, that is weird. But hey, you're our savior, so we're not going to ask too many questions. So our heroes roll up into town, and I love Nemamu like starting shit because she's like, how dare you start our lord at like level F? It's like, no, he should be higher. No, not even A, not even S. He should be even higher. It's like SEX, super extra. And I love that Gold is like, that actually makes him sound like some kind of pervert when you break it down like that. She's just like, shut up. But then he has to apologize, and then she's so like apologetic. I'm sorry, my lord, I had to make you apologize. And it's like, it's good, it's okay. They stay at what's his name, Carno or something like that, the father and child, and it's like, cool, I will be renting out your entire top floor of your place for like a month. Don't let anyone in, staff or anything, and then also put up preemptive measures as well to block out any sound so they can have their conversations in peace without anyone potentially eavesdropping on them. And during that conversation, Nemamu asked the question of, do you really have to go this far, my lord? Like, shouldn't you basically send out your envoys to, like, get your revenge on your behalf? And then, Light kind of gets pissed, and he's like, what? Are you trying to cut me out of my own revenge? And she's like, I'm sorry. And Gold's like, oh, that's, anyone who wants revenge will obviously want to do it with their own hands. You can't take that from them. And Light kind of realizes, sorry, Nemamu. I know you're just out of concern. It's like you adore me and you love me and you want me to be protected. They all want Obviously some of them probably coddle him more than others do, because like Gold's probably very offhand about it, but obviously Nimamu and probably the other four will probably have that same energy of like, I mean, we saw at the end of episode 2 like how defensive they get when it comes to light, and how protective they are, so they don't want anything to happen to them. But it's like, right, I get you don't want me to get hurt, but I've got to see this through. Sorry, I just let my emotions get the best of me, because it's like, this is my revenge, and I won't let anyone kind of keep me from it. Because I was almost scared for a second. I'm like, oh, hopefully he's not like, I mean, they are absolutely loyal to him. So I was like, oh, please don't let it be a thing of he's, once again, I don't think it's redo of healer level main protagonist where he is like, obviously like, he grows to care about them, even though like, it's manipulative situations that lead to him building the party that he does and the people around him. It's still the thing of he can come off a certain way because of it and how he treats it. Like, I don't think it's that level. I do believe just in this one moment, it's like, right, you guys are the only people I have left in this world. I don't even know if my siblings are really alive. I hope they are, but I don't know. But also, like, you've taken care of me and looked after me these past years, but also like you are, it's a complicated duality of you are the people who care about me, but you're also the weapons for my revenge. So it's like, it's always going to be there to some underlining extent, but I don't think he's unnecessarily cruel. He probably has moments where he lapses, but I don't think he's often cruel to them. At least I hope that's not the case. It's kind of one of those things you're like, I wouldn't want you to be a dick to your those loyal to you. And even she reaffirms her loyalty, and he's like, you don't have to do that. And it turns out it's like kissing the foot is a very like, oh, show of respect. But he's like, honestly, I don't like it. It's embarrassing. And then she kisses his foot. I just love Gold being like, oh, that's kind of kinky or whatever. And she's like, yo, don't like relegate what I'm doing, my reaffirming my loyalty to our master, for you to like relegate it as just something like as like kinky and something perverted. And it's like, it comes off a certain way, because even Gold's like, it just looks like you're using this as an excuse to kind of like slob on his foot and stuff like that. It's like, next stop for them was to go into the dungeon. It's interesting seeing like it is like you have to go in at a time, because I was curious like what the justification for the long line, but I guess it's like maybe it's sending people in one at a time at every certain time frame. So it's not like, oh, you have to wait for that person to go in, die, and yada yada. I wonder, does time work differently inside and outside of the dungeon? Is it kind of like a hyperbolic time chamber thing? Maybe not. But while they're in line, there ends up being some line cutters where I'm like, well, I think that also speaks volumes. You had enough common sense to not jump too immediately to the front of the line, because they also wanted to go unnoticed. Because, that ends up being the thing of like light, dark, says something to him. He's like, why are you cutting in line? No one else are line cutters, so I'm only talking to you. But like, I think that speaks volumes that you went through the trouble of, we find out who they are later on, that they're elves. Elves and the dwarves are currently beefing about this particular dungeon, so who knows what else. I mean, it seems to be like, I mean, a lot of anime like I'm watching that have like elves and dwarves so I don't know. I mean, I don't watch enough like high fantasy stuff for that to come up that often about elves. There's plenty of it, but I just like, I don't interact with a lot of high fantasy stuff outside of like anime, so I never see those depictions. But I'm sure like there probably are a lot of like, that's just probably like the nature of a lot of high fantasy stuff, is dwarves and elves beef the most. But like the fact, like my point for going to this diatribe is like, they didn't go to the front of the line because they know that would draw too much attention. They jumped like somewhere in the middle, still probably early third of the line, but it's like a later third of the line or whatever. But I'm like, yeah, if you're so hot shit, you think you're all that special, why don't you jump to immediately front? But it's like, because it would cause too much attention. You're trying to keep your identities hidden as well. So, and the home dude was about to pull out his sword, which, you also got to give it to Light too. He recognized immediately, like, well, the smaller person carrying the luggage, it's got to be the servant. This person must be pretty good, but they have all these openings. This person up here with a heavier weapon is definitely the more powerful person. And the other person had to tell the guy with the sword, as we find out later, his name is Kaito. So I had to calm Kaito down. It's like, right, let's not draw attention. And so they get sit further back in the line, and everyone celebrates. I'm like, yeah, that was awesome. Thanks for speaking up. I also love the whole conversation about gold. It's like, is your suit of armor actually made out of gold? It's like, oh, come on, don't ask that. He's like, oh, I'm just curious. I know you're curious as well. And people further up in the line are like, yeah, we're curious too. And Nemamu was like, no, it's not really made of gold. It's fake gold. When I'm like, it probably is real gold, but it's like probably draws unnecessary attention because she's like, why would you make something like it isn't that malleable enough to make a suit of armor? It'd be kind of useless. But it's like, oh, we justify, but like, yeah, but it's for the purposes of representing the shimmering shine of my loyalty to my knighthood and belief in my knighthood. But I'm like, is that actually true? Is it not actual gold? But I feel like it probably actually is proper gold, but that probably is just a lie. But I don't know if that was actually them telling the truth in that moment. I thought was also an interesting little tidbit was, hey, like, you guys must be first timers. It's like, how'd you know? You didn't bring any gear, because usually people like camp out, like, and bring gear to kind of camp out. Like, it's not going to be a quick run through to the dungeon, so you need to typically like maybe sleep overnight. And it's like, oh, interesting. And I even love the thought of like, oh, like, I think it was Nemamu that was suggesting like, oh, should we just like, because they use like a certain item storage, so it's kind of like video game logic of, oh, I've got this backpack, this infinite backpack to like hold all these items in it and stuff like that. They kind of have a similar storage kind of manner, and that's how they hold a lot of their stuff. But it's like, oh, going forward, we probably should just like, just not to draw any attention of like, oh, you're going in there with, it's like, yeah, let's carry some fake luggage. I was like, oh, that's interesting to think about, like, oh yeah, carry some fake luggage so we can just seem like we're prepared. So I was like, I just thought that was kind of a neat little thing. But yeah, they go inside the dungeon. It seems like I don't know if like necessarily understanding all dungeons. Like, once you get to the core of a dungeon, you kind of like pass it by getting to the core and kind of understanding. And I don't think that's a necessity necessarily, but more so like if you can unravel the mystery of the dungeons, because they're scattered all around the world, different sizes and ranges. Because this one in particular is very expansive. And when they stepped in there, they're like, oh my God, it's almost like a whole new world outside of the surface, which I was like, interesting. Because obviously it's like, I guess it depends. I don't watch enough dungeon crawling type of, I've dabbled here and there, in my most recent years of returning to anime. But like, I've never watched a lot of dungeon crawling stuff. So like, in my head, I think of video game classic dungeon crawling and not necessarily like full expansive environments like a whole other world. I think of like a proper dungeon, right? And it seems like the Banished Court Magician series kind of seems to have a similar thing with its dungeons being kind of expansive to some degree. But like, the first place that came to my mind was like, if you've ever read or watched Tower of God, like, the floors of the tower, because they're not all dungeon areas. Some of them are just like, I mean, depending on where you are, but there are pretty expansive areas within the tower that some are like just battle arenas, others are just like, or at least sections of them are battle arenas, some of them are just cities and stuff. But I could have sworn I remember, and to be fair, it's been so long since I've read season 1 of the webtoon but I could have sworn there was like a footnote saying like, oh yeah, basically every floor of the tower is like the size of a decent sized country. Hell, I feel like I vaguely remember it even suggesting like, oh, some floors there are maybe the size of the U.S., maybe even states in the U.S. I can't remember, but it was just explaining how massively expansive the floors are, and you're only ever on you're ever focused on a smaller section. Like I said, this was years ago, so I could be like conflating that with a different series, but I could have sworn I remember that footnote for Tower of God, but I swore it was in the webtoon, but maybe I read that somewhere else. Either way, putting all that aside, that's just my point, where it's just like, oh, each dungeon's kind of its own world, so it kind of made me think of that. But yeah, we get a proper introduction to Kaito. Funny and interesting enough, he seems to have some correlation and connection to the Maestros as well. So it's interesting that they came after Light, but not him. I mean, we don't know. They might have, whoever like hired the Concord of Tribes might be hunting other Maestros as well. I wonder, has no one ever come after Kaito. I mean, he seems pretty important because he's like the youngest, most accomplished of like the Elf Queendom's not White Knights. He's level 1500 and he seems to be stuck there. Based on the dialogue, it seems like that's not the typical max for an elf. So he's going further, but he's stuck there, and he comes from the lineage of a maestro. So he feels infuriated because it seems like he's been looked down upon by so many, and he feels like I'll only truly gain my recognition if I go beyond what I am. So the dark elf that's with them, it's like I want him to help me push past my limits. Where you're like, he's even saying like, I don't trust that guy, but the moment he helps me level up, I'm going to toss him and say, it's not going to go the way you want, homie. That guy's going to stab you in the back, or he's going to turn you into some monster. Because he seems like the very like Victor Frankenstein, like, oh, I'm ready to experiment on you type of, he gives off that energy. That's why like even, I think it's interesting too that the servant, whoever they are, we didn't get to properly meet them. So we still don't know who they are. They're just still cloaked up and hidden. But yeah, just shows you who Kaito is, and it's just interesting how and I wonder, are we going to find out like there's one maestro like potentially amongst every race? So in total there are 9. Light just happens to be the one from the humans, but we're meeting one who's at least from the bloodline of one in the elves. So there's probably one in every race. So that's interesting. So what does that mean? Like, could there be one maestro that's like going around trying to wipe out? Well, because the reason why they went after Light is because they thought he was one. The point was to kill him if he wasn't one. So maybe it's like someone is gathering maestros from like every race to be some conquering group or something like that. And if like, oh, but then, like, as I was about to say, like, if someone had the potential, what were you going to do? Because you didn't think he had the potential and wasn't one, you decided to just go ahead and kill him. So I was about to say, so, because I was wondering, like, maybe it could be a thing of you were going to wipe out other maestros so you can be the one who stands above all, the one above type of thing, of like, you be the one powerful maestro by wiping out the others. I mean, it could be the thing of your plan was to gather all the maestros and then absorb all their powers, not inadvertently, basically killing them and getting rid of them, but also sapping up their power just to make yourself that much stronger. Who knows? You might have already started that, and Light was just going to be the next victim in a long Rolodex. It's been 3 years, so there could be even more progress made, but Kaito's there perfectly fine. So he might be, because of his lower level, he's under the radar, because he hasn't reached the level of being a maestro either, so I don't know. There's a lot there that I'm interested to kind of explore that more. And then finally, obviously, Light, Gold, and Nemu kind of ended up like breezing through the dungeon, flying, concealing themselves, and got the magic stones or whatever they were supposed to, and then they bounced. But as they were leaving, they ran into the kids they had ran into earlier and helped them out. Like, obviously, they were about to be attacked by... Well, they got rid of the goblins, but there was like a snake there that would have like paralyzed their support. But then we have more monsters running, but they're running from something bigger, and it's like a mantis creature, which obviously like it makes me think of, kind of makes me sad seeing it. It's not the same, but it being kind of this mantis thing makes me think of Isla from my Apocalypse Bringer, Mino Gar. If you know, you know. So that's why just seeing that kind of made me sound like, oh, that just kind of bums me out all over again. Either way, very interesting developments. I'm curious to see where the next episode takes us. I wonder how much Gold, Nemu, or even Light are going to show off against this thing. Probably don't want to show off too much of your mic because you'll draw too much attention. Maybe if you deal with it swiftly enough, it'll be fine and probably get the kids to swear to secrecy. Wonder how they'll... Because obviously they had the same goal as like... I mean, I think everyone's goal is that, to get to the 3rd floor to deal with like... What was it? The... Was it trolls or so you have to get those stone... Like that's part of like the quest you have to do for ranking up and stuff. So I wonder, does... What's his face? Kaito and his people, like, have they already done that? Because eventually those two are going to have, obviously being maestro candidates and stuff, it's like destiny's going to like make them clash, but he definitely has like a chip on his shoulder now that he's run into Light, which obviously severely outranked in many different regards, because it's not just Light. Obviously, even Nemumu and Gold out level him and stuff. So it's gonna be interesting to see where the potential future run-in is gonna be on that in that department.